Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear audience. Warmly welcome to this exclusive event from Mäntä, Finland. My name is Rebekka Angervo. I am the producer of the Youth Piano Academy Finland. We have a great honor to welcome Professor Matti Raekallio from the Juilliard School of Music, New York, and Sibelius-Akatemia, Helsinki, to give a masterclass teaching the young, talented students of the Youth Piano Academy Finland. Warmly welcome Matti Raekallio and enjoy.
Thank you. Okay, Vilina, so you are going to play some Beethoven for us, the 10 variations, Lastessa, Lastessissimo. Let's do so that you can play that through first and then we'll talk about some details. Very good, very good. I like your playing very much in many ways. I mean, clearly you have a sense of humor, and that's what you really need in this piece. I mean, that's one of the main things about this set of variations. And also technically, mostly you do quite well. I mean, there are some places which we have to look at, of course, as always.
Yes.
Sure, but I mean, no big issues. And I also like this relative freedom. I mean, you play some passages rather freely. I think that's very nice. I like that very much. And I like also that you make the contrast between this theme, which is not at all free, and that's also nice. And then, especially towards the end, there's a kind of a cadenza just before the theme comes back, and you play the cadenza especially freely. That's exactly right, I think. You see, I think that's the contrast between Beethoven and Salieri. This theme is by Salieri.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about this composer called Salieri?
I have heard about him, but I don't know.
Yeah. Did you by any chance see this film Amadeus about Mozart?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Well, Salieri has a very important role in that film. I mean, Salieri was a very famous composer, very notable composer, very rich and moved in the best circles and very kind of high-class composer. Not the most imaginative person in the world, but still kind of important, very important person. And in the film, this Salieri meets this kind of crazy young guy who makes all kinds of stupid jokes and acts like a clown, and then he doesn't like this guy at all. And then all of a sudden, Salieri hears one performance of a piece by this young guy, who is Mozart. And the piece is just amazingly beautiful, just incredibly beautiful. And Salieri thinks, how is this possible, that this crazy idiot is composing music like that? So Salieri was made in the film a kind of a symbol of a very pedantic and bourgeois composer. He was actually more than that. He was better than that. He was not a completely stupid guy. Mm-hmm. And actually he gave some lessons to Beethoven even. So that already means that he had a contact to talent himself. and so Salieri composed the theme, and Beethoven decided to make variations on the theme by his teacher. But I think that when Beethoven did that, so he decided to, okay, yeah, Mr. Teacher, I think I will show you something about character and something about sense of humor and all that. So it gets more and more humorous and even crazy towards the end of the variations. Mm-hmm. This theme is based on Salieri's opera Falstaff. Do you know anything about this person, Falstaff?
No.
Well, he was a figure in a play by Shakespeare, and he was a very special figure. I mean, he was a very fat guy. He liked to drink all the time. He liked to eat all the time. I mean, like 3 times more than he should, and make all kinds of stupid things. So it was a completely comic play by Shakespeare. And so when Salieri did this opera, Falstaff, so it was, of course, going to be comic. And I think that was like the challenge for Beethoven, like to show people that, okay, talk about comics. I'll teach you about comics. So this kind of thing. So the theme, I think, you played very well because it was very precise and very good. In the theme, there are a few things which I think we should look at. They deal with the metrical weights, metrical stresses and non-stresses. You see, the meter is 4 quarters, 1, 2, 3, 4. That will mean automatically 1, 2, 3, 4. That the 4 is not loud. So that's 4. And you can, I think, show with the rhythm, some little things which make this theme also a little bit more funny. Pum, piyabadabadum, pum, pum, iyakadakadum, pum, padibadabum, ping, pum, sikadakadum. Like a little bit later with this tikadikidim in the treble. Let's try that. Nice. The only thing which I would like to have a bit more precisely is, and then 4, 1, and 1, so the 1 is a bit more strong than the 4. 3, 4. Personally, I would play very staccato at the end. You see, he writes staccato, and when we decide how staccato is, this particular staccato, we should think about the context. I mean, what kind of piece we have. And sometimes a staccato is not very short at all. Sometimes it can be rather heavy. But in this kind of very funny thing, so staccato is very short. Of course, there's a quarter note. So it's not like, not a 16th note with 3 breaks, but still, I would say that because of the context, because of the character, I would play that extremely shortly, in spite of the note value. Let's try. Yeah, not an accent. Yeah, exactly that, very light, good, good. Good. Okay, continue. And then still, same thing. 1, 3, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice, nice, nice. Continue, please. Okay, actually, fine. I actually meant that you can go on to the second time. Don't worry, that's fine. You can do the repeats, and actually I would also do the repeats, because the repeats in these early classical compositions, they give us the possibilities to do something different, you see. What kind of different things would you like to do if you do the repeat of the first? Would you like to think about it, or would you like to try something out right now? Let's try.
Or it can be more silent, more piano.
Can be. Absolutely. Very nice. For instance, you can do all contrasts bigger when you do the repeat, if you like. You can do also some rhythmical things, if you like. You can also change some dynamics, if you like. But mostly it's, I think, about adding contrasts. It's not so much about adding notes, especially. That could be possible, even to do some little variants like that. Because, I mean, this was still from a time where the performers were not only allowed, but expected, actually, to do some things like that. And especially when the piece is so funny as this, I think that could be possible. But I would leave that to you and your teacher to think about that. Okay, very good. Then there's something interesting in the end. I mean, all of this in the beginning is very staccato. Sure, but all of a sudden there's no staccato there, and especially there's no staccato here. That's a very typical French horn passage. And there's even a crescendo, so it can be French horns blaring quite loud, especially in the repeat, if you like. That's kind of funny as well. Exactly that. And then the question is, could this be the flute, so that it's not actually very loud, so that only the French horns are very loud? That's one possibility. You can try it, please. Yeah, I think it's one of these ideas which sound actually don't work so well. That's my fault, that's not yours. So I think we should actually let the crescendo go on. So do what you were doing. That's much better like that. Definitely better like that. And actually I would go now to the other direction. I would keep the right hand even louder at the end. That's one possible crazy fingering, by the way. Yeah, exactly. That guarantees that the last note will be more in the right hand. That's one possibility. Okay, let's go on, because I mean you understand that anyway. Now, sets of variations, any set of variations is usually in a way or another about contrast. Contrast between the variations, and also contrast sometimes between the theme and the variation, especially variations, especially here. One thing which we have to think about in any set of variations is what about the tempo? I mean, does the tempo change from variation to variation, or does it not change? I think that's something which we have to decide on each case separately. Do you know the so-called Appassionata sonata by Beethoven?
Yes.
Yeah, you have heard that. So the slow movement is usually we use the pedal there. That's a set of variations on this theme. So the first variation it's like halving the note values. The theme goes on in quarter notes. First variation is in eighth notes. Then second variation in 16th notes. Third variation, this always doubles the note values. In such a case, I think it's important that we have the same tempo here. This is very different. This is in a way more like some other sets of Beethoven, even the very last fantastically great and gigantic set called the Diabelli variations. Have you heard about that?
No.
The theme is very funny. It's very stupid. The theme is so stupid that Beethoven first refused to do any variations. He said that this is just kind of a patch for a shoemaker. I mean, I don't want to do anything with that. But then he started to think, well, actually, you know, there's some possibilities. And then he started to do fantastic variations after the other, and he did 33 variations all in the end. Really complicated. And they are all different, and the tempos are all different. So that's like the opposite. I mean, the same composer did this variation set in the Appassionata where the tempos are all the same, and in the Diabelli he did exactly the opposite. I think this is more of this character variation type where the tempos can be very flexible. I think the first variation might be more or less in the same tempo of the theme. You see, we have in the first variation this, which is very much like in the theme. So I would play that in the same tempo because of those links. Then another thing that the character is still very different. You see, the theme was very staccato. So and this is absolutely legato, as legato as can be, in the right hand especially. I would make almost like a joke of this legato, like super legato, as lazy legato as you can play. Fine. Pay attention to the duration of the left hand chords. 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. There are breaks. And the breaks make it possible for the listener to hear the right hand legato better. You see, the right hand gets more room if the left hand goes out of the way. Good. Your left hand gets better and better. By every repetition, you play the last note shorter and shorter, and that's great. I mean, the end was really good. The first one was maybe a little bit long. Now, try to do what you did in the on the fourth time from the very beginning. Very good, very good. When we have a chromatic scale which goes up, we very often do a kind of a crescendo almost automatically. I think here it's very good when we do the opposite, like a kind of a lazy diminuendo. Like gets like softer and softer and more relaxed and less active. Try that, please. That's quite something. Very nice. Same lazy. Very nice. You are completely right, because this is not staccato. We could have our two French horns there. Exactly right. Very nice. You are doing fine. So that would be the most important things, like a kind of a super legato, super lazy first variation, because the theme was so staccato and so like steady. Okay, let's go to the third. Okay, good. This is then something else again. It's not pianissimo anymore, it's one piano. So it's more sonorous, more big. And then I think that because of the double stems Beethoven writes for these notes in the beginning, yeah, I mean, he writes the first note as a part of the 16th stuff, but he also writes the first note as something else. And then there's the bass. So we should actually almost produce the impression of three hands, you see. As we have, like we have this kind of very light 16th pattern. Interesting, by the way, that Beethoven writes the slurs the way he does. He writes the first below the quarter notes, the second slur above the quarter notes. Same thing again, below and above. And that could mean that he doesn't actually mean necessarily that the 16th would be legato at all. So we could have like, and with the left hand, so it could sound like three hands, of course with pedal. So, but so that this is completely different sound than as light as you can for this 16th. Sorry, I would like to have that difference a bit more clear. Can you just do the first bar with two hands so that you play the melody with the left hand and this stuff with the right hand, but so that the sound of the two parts, two hands, is completely different. Okay, your sound in the melody part got better and better and better. The first one was too shy, then second was better, third was better, fourth was fine. But actually we have a slur, which means so it's like the opposite. So the first note is very sonorous, second is a bit less, and this C sharp is even less, and the D is actually very soft. Yeah, that's exactly right. Can you match that with the right hand alone?
Only that?
Yeah, only right. I mean, play all the notes like you played with two hands, which was excellent, by the way, and try to match that as clearly as you can with only right hand. Okay, try again two hands, please. Remember, first note very sonorous and right hand very light. That was absolutely perfect. Can you do it once again with two hands, please? Good. Do it once again and listen very carefully to the difference between the sounds. Once again. And now match that with the right hand. Can you play just the first group with two hands? Fine. Match that with the right hand. See, it's a very big difference. Now use the pedal and play that with the right hand, as you usually do. That's what I would like to hear. So that the general sound of the variation 2 is completely different from the dolce sound of this pianissimo chromatic scales in variation 1. So that's very beautiful. But this has to be beautiful in another way, much more open way. So really big sound. Let's do it with both hands and pedal and everything. You need the bass also. Yeah, exactly. So a little later than this, like about 30 years, 40 years later, there was in Europe Franz Liszt, who was of course one of the greatest pianists in the world, and he had a rival called Thalberg, Sigismund Thalberg, also a very good pianist, but not Liszt. and Thalberg had a speciality. He had what he called three hands. So he did like simple melodies banged with the right hand thumb, and then arpeggios over that, and then the left hand. So it sounds like somebody plays with three hands. I mean, this was very crude, of course, and Thalberg apparently did it very well. But this is that's the same thing, you see, and Beethoven was, of course, much before Thalberg, so Beethoven should get the patent for that. But it should sound like three hands. Continue, very good. Okay, your first bar is absolutely excellent. It's really very clearly three different levels. When you start the second bar, when you throw the ball to the soprano, the first note of the soprano could be a bit more, so that the soprano like catches up with the tenor even more clearly. Okay, and then change the pedal between those two very clearly. Yeah. Excellent, excellent. That's really exactly what I meant. That's very good. And this way you get a completely different sound picture from the first variation. And what is actually interesting is that in both cases you get this typical Beethoven thing of legato. You see, Beethoven was the first composer to really focus on legato, much more than Mozart and much more than Salieri, for sure. and now you get like two different kinds of legato in the first two variations. First, this kind of very light legato that crawls like a worm or snake or something, and then this, just like you did, which was fine. So let's go on. Actually, that's the same things. There's one interesting thing. You see, there's no bar numbers, but in this bar, we have a slur between B natural and C, and we have the sforzando on the C, which is kind of counterintuitive, because usually a short slur like that for two notes, especially if there's a leading tone and a resolution tone, so that's automatically a diminuendo. Now Beethoven turns that upside down. He was not the only one, though. I mean, Mozart does that also, Haydn did that also, and many others did that. So, but I think for Beethoven, you can really do the sforzando even more than in Mozart or Haydn, so kind of smack in the face. So, really, like very arrogant. Very nice. That works very well. What do you think about the next variation? I mean, how would you orchestrate that if this was composed for the orchestra? So what kind of instruments would you have there? What instrument would play the lower part? I don't look for any right answer, I look for your opinion, you see. I mean, nobody has any right answers there, so we have just opinions. Sorry?
En mä keksi oikein.
Maybe the cello. Maybe the cello. I was also thinking of the bassoon, but I'm not quite sure if the bassoon goes so low. I mean, a normal bassoon, a double bassoon, a counter bassoon, of course, would go. I think the cello would be a good bet. So that could be a cello solo. think so. Violins and maybe also first and second violins and maybe the viola. Maybe they could play. So they would be like a pizzicato accompaniment for the cello. Cello is like Stradivarius cello and lots of vibrato and everything. And then the others. Now, this is, of course, I know that this is a little extreme, but I think that's okay, because the character of this set is so humorous that I would read the staccato, which Beethoven clearly writes for the chords. I would read the staccato like extremely staccato, even up to a pizzicato, just because that would highlight in a very comical and humorous and slightly exaggerated way the cello solo. So. It's, we could imagine this comical figure of Falstaff singing. Maybe a little too much wine and all that. And then the others, you see, like laughing. So it could be this kind of pizzicato plus a cello solo. Let's try. You see, Beethoven writes piano for the left hand and piano for the right hand, but it can be a very different piano. Left hand can be a kind of a solo piano, big fat bass singer, and the right hand piano can be like a very amused pizzicato from the orchestra. I want to make a bigger difference between the two. This kind of. Yes. That's very nice. I think that's very nice. I think that's a very good approach to that, and I think it's justifiable by this situation, by this subject matter of this variation, Falstaff, and maybe also Salieri. Beethoven was a very kind of tough student for everybody. Also, Beethoven studied with Haydn, and that also was very difficult. I mean, Beethoven did not come along very well with Haydn, and Haydn called him the Grossmogul, which means kind of a hotshot. So, not good. Difficult guy. Anyways, the reason for, I think you play that very well. You tend to keep the left-hand chords a bit too long, so be careful with that case. Otherwise, it was fine. Still, you see. Already. That's the point. I think the left hand has a kind of a, we could say laconic. Do you understand the word laconic? It means like very, very short answers, very short comments. And right hand, it's like very long, very many words. So this kind of. Can you make the left hand sound like Yes. Very, very fine. Then when we have a slur, always, when there's no sforzando, I mean, that's the exception which Beethoven wrote in one place. But now there's no exception. Todum, todum. And I think actually we have these French horns again. Kind of lyrical. I think left hand could be a little bit softer. But hey, then, no. So it's todum, todum. No accent, just short. Todum. That's nice. and so on, and so on, yeah. So it takes a little practicing. By the way, you very often divide the figures between two hands. I think that's very good. In my personal opinion, that's exactly not only allowed, but to be encouraged. So that whenever a certain division between the hands, which is not marked by the composer, but which the pianist decides to do, whenever that division helps the music, let's say to sound more even, that can be done. And I would say that should be done. There's a school of pianists who think exactly the opposite. No, no, no. If a composer writes something, it must be played with the hand the composer wrote. I don't think so. I think the composer, most of all, composed a piece of music, something which sounds and which is beautiful as sound. And then the figurations, as they are written, they are supposed maybe to be played with one hand or two, who knows. We are actually not quite sure here which hand is supposed to play which. And anyway, if you think of Bach fugues, so anyway, the middle lines there are to be freely redistributed between the two hands, and it doesn't spoil the music at all, it makes the music possible. And I would expand that from there. But this is a kind of a question which I think you will hear about in the future, because there are very, very, very hot conversations with pianists about this kind of thing. My position is what I said. But you don't have to actually follow that necessarily. But I noticed that you actually already do. So thank you, and join the club. So we are completely in the same boat there. Okay, can we finish the variation? Can you start from here? Hey, we should leave this F down. What we cannot do is we cannot change the notation. I mean, if a note by the composer is written for to be sounding for 2 bars, so it's going to be sounding for 2 bars in some way or another. And this fingering is fine. Just a very relaxed. That's it. Yes, but then that's just a chord. It's one of these. I will play a very sharp staccato, very funny staccato. Yes. Okay, that's just something technical which you can look at. What I think here is very important is to prepare this whole hand position. And the most important single movement is the second finger going to the F. You see, you have this in the last quarter of the last bar. And now, what used to be played with the thumb is now going to be played with the second. That's the point. Okay, that's just technical. Okay, you know, I think we have to stop here at variation 4 because time is running out. But anyway, very, very good. I mean, you have a very good sense of humor and you're very quick in doing these things which we talked about. So that's extremely promising. You have to keep working on these details, but I think you'll get a terrific variations out of this. you, thank you. So you have the Wandering Fantasy, which is of course a gigantic work, and we have 1 hour, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have 1 hour. So
actually, I don't know, 45 minutes, I think.
Rebecca, 45 or 1 hour?
45.
45,
Yeah.
okay. 45, so that means that there's no way we should play this through.
Yeah, so maybe first 2 movements.
First 2,
Yeah.
Excellent, let's do that. Okay, good. Very good. I mean, you have already solved many problems here, musical and technical problems. I mean, the piece is full of them. It's one of the most difficult things in the standard repertoire. It's actually interesting that the Richter said that to him the 5 most difficult pieces in the standard repertoire were, of course, the Hammerklavier, the Liszt Sonata, the Schumann Symphonic Etudes, the Brahms Paganini Variations, and this. So it's like in the top 5 for Richter, and that's already saying a lot. So that means that we have a tremendous task when we tackle this thing. I liked many things, like I said. Also, your phrasing is very often very beautiful, and I, for instance, appreciated that you understand the alla breve in the second movement. You clearly play that in alla breve, and that's what it is, of course. People sometimes neglect to see that, but you don't, and that's good. The big problem is that this can't really be in the same tempo you started the opening. Yeah. The tempo in the opening was rather fast, and of course for alla breve that's good. It's always when we have an adagio alla breve, there's a kind of a weighing of the two demands at the same time. And I think you are now going too much for the alla breve in the beginning as well. I mean, it's also adagio, and that feeling should be felt a little bit. It's on the verge of becoming an andante in the opening, and that makes this impossible. But we'll get to that. So the first movement is not alla breve. When you started this, I just wanted to check that Berenreiter does not have some information which I don't have about the meter, but no, it's 4 quarters also in Berenreiter, and I think we should play it that way. Now, you are playing the theme the tempo in the first movement absolutely excellently, for instance, here. Could you start from bar 140, right there, for instance? But I'm hearing something like that, but just play it very rhythmically. This. I mean, like I said, it doesn't matter if you play that with one hand or two hands or 2 feet or whatever, but it must be completely in the same tempo. No, you come in a way to the downbeat, which does not sound like 4 quarters. Like, I mean, this comes too soon. And then we have to hear the beginning of the arpeggios very clearly. But you're getting too fast at the end. But then it sounds like alla breve, but one da da dum da da dum. Yeah, fine. Yeah, exactly. Now it's much better, and I think it's really important to make that difference very clearly. Of course, I mean the reason enough is that he does not mark it alla breve, and we should play the quarter notes allegro con fuoco ma non troppo, so not rushing and all that. But I think there's a deeper reason for all that, and I think it has to do with the concept of the entire piece, which has to do with the concept of wandern. And for Schubert that was a very, very important element, a very important idea. I think it has something of a relentless continuity, something which cannot be stopped. I mean, die Liebe liebt das Wandern, and das Wandern ist des Müllers Lust, and blah, blah, blah. It's always das Wandern. I mean, this kind of continuing movement which we join. And the movement is like stronger than us, I think, somehow, for Schubert. And I think we should feel that very clearly. If we do things, if we mess up with the tempo there, I mean, we lose that. So we should very clearly there's no rubato possible there. Better except for one thing, and that one thing is you see the slur breaks. The slur breaks between the G and the right. Okay, can you do a clear slur break between the two? I don't hear the last note of the arpeggio. But now I hear. All right, okay. Very good. Fine. There's sometimes a little spice, little smell of alla breve. And I would like not to have the spice at all. Jo da da dun dun, jo da pa pum pum. Better. I think behind this rushing which you did, there is a very good and very correct feeling of continuity, and you just have allowed that to become to kind of disintegrate into rushing. But I think the impulse behind that is very good, and I think you are completely right in stressing the linear continuity of this. That has to be done, but also what has to be done is the non-alla breve relentlessness of the rhythm, and that's, like I said, for the concept of Wandern, that's exactly right. But now your playing sounds much better. Would you like to do it from the start, please, once more? There you go. 3. Really excellent. And now your idea of this continuity is completely clear, and you also managed to play in rhythm. That's what we should do, and that's what you just did. You just showed that in an excellent version. Great, let's go on. Sorry, slur. That's very good. I would suggest the high is like a bell. Nice. Also there, the last one. Yes, exactly. That's, I think, very nice. How well do you know the Winterreise, the song cycle Winterreise, Winter's Journey?
Not very well.
Okay, there's this song, Der Lindenbaum. Very, very beautiful. And somehow the Lindenbaum, the words for the Lindenbaum, they are somehow very symbolic for the attitude of Schubert for this whole Wanderung, for this Wandern. I mean, the idea of the Lindenbaum words is that the fugitive, the poet who is fleeing, remembers a linden tree that was in his home yard when he was young, and he used to rest on the shadow of this tree. And even now, when he is far away, he can hear this tree calling to him, and come back, and you can find peace here. But the poet cannot come back. The poet has to go, and this is the continuity of the Wandern. But it's also the decision against this temptation of come back, come here and rest, and don't go, and don't move, and breathe, and don't breathe. You see, it's the call of death, and I think it's kind of almost like a Buddhist choice. So when we choose life, we choose suffering, and that's what the poet is choosing. Continuing and not going back, and not refusing to stop breathing. So I think that these bells are somehow reminiscent of this call of the Lindenbaum, because you see, they are always followed by a break, and then they are finally followed by this tie prolonging the sound of the bells, like maybe, no. So it's a very important place. Would you like to do it from here? Hey, sorry, no, you're rushing. Please don't. Not alle brevet. Completely different quality now. I mean, this is simply much better like that. You are doing both the continuity and the rhythmical characterization, which is what we have to do. Very good. We have so little time that let's kind of skip around a little. Here, when you present the theme in E major, by the way, maybe not coincidentally, because that's, who knows, I mean, it's also in E major, and then I can't prove that. But anyway, there's something which tends to calm things down in this E major, and that's, I think, okay, as long as you don't actually change the tempo. But a kind of a tranquillo allegro would be good. Can you start a bit before? Okay, let's do it again. I think you should clear the pedal better also here, so that the bass is not too loud. Seductive about that. Please come back. You see, the seduction disappears. Come back! So, diminuendo. Accentuate the last note. No. Really diminutive. Okay. Nice. About this. Now it's better, and then we return to the opening material, which is like the opening material was. This was okay. And I like this. There's something very special about that place, and I think you brought that up. Very good. This was completely rhythmical, by the way. So when you sometimes practice the opening, so you can take the model from. Actually, it's it was also maybe a little bit slower than your opening. So can be the same tempo, of course, but so that there's a very clear 4 quarters pulse there. Okay, here you have to practice the left hand. Left hand sometimes doesn't play these 2 last notes before the jump. So by the way, fingering question, how do you do these things? Okay, so you do that. Okay, fine, that's good. You can open the 5th finger earlier. See, actually I'm opening it already now. Yeah, that's right. And then don't stay there, but continue. Pay attention to the 2 last notes of every left hand group. There has to be this sort of movement energy. Very clear. Yep. This was okay. This was okay. This was fine. Good repetitions, this. That was well done. Okay, you slow down in the octaves. That's not a crime. I mean, I think it's nice that you don't cheat, you don't leave out anything, and so eventually I think you will learn to play them pretty much in tempo, and when the tempo is not too fast from the beginning, I think it can be pretty much done. They are very difficult, extremely difficult, but they are doable when the tempo is right. And take into account these black and white keys. And then, especially the left hand is a bit more difficult. In the left hand there's one note, this one here, which is the most difficult of them all. Make sure that you play the yeah, right. Yeah. So when you come from the black key to the white key, play the white key a little louder. Okay, yeah. Almost. Okay, that's it. So you're very close, and you don't have to change the tempo because of, I mean, you don't have to decide the tempo of the piece because of those octaves. You are that close, and you can adjust the tempo a little bit, like slightly pulling back secretly here before the octaves come. And then when you have done that, when you come, do nothing with the tempo. Keep it absolutely the same. Can you try that, please? Hey, sorry, that sounds like elevator. 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4, and there's a certain heaviness to coming to the next beat. Should be. That's it. Top line. That could be more. You can sometimes practice playing just the two top notes, because it's between them we have to do the difference between the soprano. By the way, that's also a decent way to practice. Of the hand goes down, and then you relax to the right, so in such a way that you leave the hand weight on the 5th finger longer than to the other fingers. Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's it. Fine. Can you start 3 bars before the I suppose you do know the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. When you think of the words, there are many things we should think about. Of course, we should most of all think about the meaning of the words. But we should also think about the syllabic structure of the words. Die Sonne dünkt mich. And so on. Hier, so, kalt are 3 different words. Die So the second syllable of the second eighth note usually is part of a word with two syllables. So it should not be stress and it should not be delayed. Sorry, but no German would say die Sonne. They would say die Sonne. Die Sonne dünkt. Yeah, that's something else. Kalt. Very good. I will not stop you. See, he writes a tie and then a slur starting from the last note of the tie. It's very continuous. I think that the real break is right here before you come to the key of the whole thing. But until then, it's like not good, not good, not good, not good. What they talk, what they eat, what they look like. Well, everything is bad. It's like one continuous. Yes, fine. Very, very good. If you like, you could maybe bring out that key moment. Ich bin ein Fremdling. I'm a stranger everywhere. A bit more. You might perhaps do so that you can voice the chords differently. In the beginning, if we have something like even chords. So now we could have. Much more pinky. Yeah, that's good. Don't stop now. Okay, very good. So we come from a song transcription to what could be a string quartet transcription, like four voices. Now, I think it's a special kind of string quartet because it's a very clearly soprano, the first violin accompanied by all the others. I mean, the texture is such that the first violin carries the melody and the others accompany. Have you heard, by any chance, recordings of the old Amadeus Quartet?
Yeah, sometimes.
Right. So that, I mean, they had a very special kind of hierarchy and a very soprano-heavy hierarchy. The primas, the first violin Norbert Brainin, was a very dominant personality, and I think you can take the Amadeus Quartet song, Amadeus Quartet sound as the model for this. That's it. Faster. So it's on the verge right now. So just keep the tempo which you had in the song. Can you do the E major again? No. Don't stress 8 notes. That's quite good now. C sharp even there. Yeah. Yeah, good. Very beautiful. Primas. Okay. Change the pedal very well. Can you do that half bar again, please, from here? Okay. Good. Alla breve. 2. Alla breve still. Hey, sorry, that's the second quarter note of that bar is very dangerous. If it comes too late, we lose the alla breve. Can you do the previous bar? Alla breve. There you go. Still alla breve. I know, that's so hard to keep alla breve there. I mean, because it's like almost per eighth note. I mean, the feeling is very easily per eighth note. But we can actually, if you don't slow down to it, something like that. Can you do one bar before? This works very good. So just don't change the tempo. So it's alla breve still. Can you continue? Yeah, fine. That's very good. I think there's something very angelic about this sound here. I would like to have as much pinky as possible. Yeah, right. And keep the left hand as light as you can. Hey. Done. No. Alla breve. I mean. 3. The second eighth note must be softer than the first. There we go. Hey, yeah, and then should be no accent on the last. There's a diminuendo, I think, in the slur. Okay. And now it could be darker in this next. I think it could be maybe. Sorry. it's doable. You see, first you should, I think, practice the left hand, because this they are very quick and very difficult jumps. So keep the weight on the bass line and then here, but not so much here. And do the movement very close to the keys. Very close. So listen. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Start from getting that to the tempo, and then when you practice the right hand, I will practice lots of this way. Yeah, so like the other fingers, the thumb, all the other fingers, the thumb, the other fingers, the thumb. That way. That's the best way to get speed, and kind of a light speed, which is not overly articulated, but really as clearly in tempo as possible. I think we have to stop, so I think your lesson started like 1:45, and now it's like 12:30.
Yeah.
So, but we actually at least mentioned all the most important things. No rush. So in tempo. And this you did well, and this was good. So good job. It's on a very good starting position. Of course, there's lots of work to do, but you are on a good track with this. And I think this piece suits you very well. So it's a very good choice.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
So maybe the second movement and
I think
maybe
second and third, because I
Yes.
think we have time for that. You have 1 hour, don't you? Or
no, 45.
45, like everybody. Okay, fine.
Maybe
so
the three first variations.
3 first variations is fine.
Maybe.
That's fine. And you can start from somewhere in the first one so that we can get the links to the second.
Yeah.
What about starting from the vivace tempo adagio texture chords? That's a nice place to start. From
Yes.
So, I mean, for any pianist, these are these holy monsters, these last Beethoven sonatas. I mean, they are always full of things we can do even better. But I mean, that's why they should be played. I mean, Schnabel said that he chose his repertoire on the basis of he only wanted to play pieces which are better than they ever can be played. That's kind of a civilized way to look at that. So this is definitely one of them, and you know the Schnabel performance of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
First completed Beethoven.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's also, this one is quite something. So, the structure of this sonata, we didn't talk so much about that. I mean, we talked, when you play the first movement, we talked lots about the structure of the first movement. It's actually interesting because there's a kind of a, almost like a fractal pattern in the structure, in the sense that we have these black and white contrasts, let's say, between the dolce first theme in the first movement and the adagio espressivo second theme. Very strong and very dissonant, very consonant, very flowing, and so like very, very day and night kind of thing. Well, between the first and second movements, we have pretty much the same kind of thing, in the sense that the first movement as a whole, taken as a whole, is still very delicate and very like refined and mostly lyrical and very emotional. And then this is absolutely horrible. I think this prestissimo is like greetings from hell. I mean, absolutely devastating. Fortissimo from the start, I think like a brutal opening after that. So it's very much like the same kind of thing we have in the Sonata Opus 110, but then the continuation, of course, there is different. But there, we still have this extreme contrast between the first and second movement, not quite as extreme as here, but still. And then we can say that the first two movements together form something which can be then replied by the third movement. That fractality in that contrast is not as clear, but we can say that the contrast is between the lopsided discrepancy between the characters here and a much more harmonious character difference in the third movement. So it's like the character differences get like smoothed out during this like largest scale structure of this fractal patterning. But here it's like the most violent contrast imaginable between the last chord of the first movement and the first chord of the third first note of the second. Have you heard the Richter performance of this?
No.
Oh, that's something which you should hear, only because of the way he starts the second movement. you can imagine. Okay, so no, don't be shy about that at all. And then prestissimo, absolutely, but prestissimo in a kind of a almost like a dance-like way. I always imagine this prestissimo as a kind of a tarantella macabre, like a tarantella of death, like something which goes relentlessly and remains absolutely rhythmical, and also so that we hear papada 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 pam, like horribly inflexible in the rhythm. So the first bar already is important because we must hear the second beat very clearly. And then, as usually in Beethoven, we must make sure that we do the differences in articulation that he writes. So legato, but it's not supposed to be beautiful in any way.
Brutal.
It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Yeah, exactly. I always had a hard time understanding why people take it so natural that literature, for instance, can express completely horrible things, absolutely like nightmarishly brutal things. Theater, same way. Painting, same way. I mean, from Goya, Picasso, absolutely everybody. But somehow from music they don't. Please, that's a bit loud. Why on earth? I mean, it's about the same human condition, and as we too well know now, it has these very unfortunate parts, and I think this expresses it very, very well. Can you do just the last phrase of the first one, then come to the second? In order to keep the refined, delicate, lyrical feeling of the first movement, we should, I think, even in the last crescendo, we should take care of the small slurs. So we have this kind of a crescendo. So we have the local diminuendo while we are doing the crescendo. No, sorry. I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I know that you don't mean that, but there's one little technical trick which you can do always when you have these two-note slurs, and this is no exception. You can do so that you leave the first note of the slur down, I mean the heavy note, and make it a finger pedal. You're going to have the pedal anywhere there. So this just a little added layer, and that makes it easier to put and hold the arm weight on the first note, and have the second note very lightly released while the first note is still there. It kind of camouflages the attack of the second note. Yeah, that's it. When we play that with a big, good instrument like you have there, the balance would be such that instead of the very strong bass, you still have the right hand more on the bass. Okay, very good. One question, what's your fingering for?
It's like it said.
Okay, that's of course possible. I use another one. I use 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5. And the advantage of that is that the legato doesn't break. 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5. I can actually break it down for you. So, and of course, I mean, only when you have enough time for the next gig with this. So then, of course, that's the time to change the fingerings. Not, I would say, like months. I mean, fingerings for me, they are hard to change, and I mean, they are kind of easy to find, but hard to change. Okay, right, let's go on. Good, very good. You bring out the pattern pattern I mean 2 bars non-legato, non-crescendo, 2 bars legato, crescendo. That's what happens in these bars. The non-legato, non-crescendo is very well done. The crescendo of the legato pair of bars could be more clear. I think there's a kind of anxiety which is suppressed in the non-legato. And then I think that deserves to be brought out really very clearly. Okay. I mean actually. So that there's like a half hysterical anguish there in this part. Okay. I think you need more weight for these 2 notes. Sorry. That's like the peak of the crescendo really. This is easy. That's easy, but that's not so easy. So concentrate on those 2 notes and make just so that you already have here quite much weight. Hopes. Okay, good. Better. Yeah, but don't rush. This demonic rhythm must be there all the time. Very good. That's very good. This is kind of an iconic place because it kind of bears out brings out Beethoven's concept of espressivo once and for all, because we have piano, then un poco espressivo, and then a tempo. So that means that it's absolutely a tempo indication. That has then many repercussions, but I would do that espressivo quite clearly. I mean, quite clearly as. So it's like 2 bars of clearly slow tempo. Forward. Especially in the repetition. That's the place to show it. Nice. Fine. Excellent. And then make sure that you don't start a faster tempo than in the beginning. Yakata, same tempo. The previous time was better. You gave more time to the espressivo. Okay. Imagine that the espressivo is heavier and more difficult to move. I mean, both of those things I think are typical for a Beethoven espressivo. Just like. This friction. So it's of course not the same kind of espressivo, but not easy somehow. Yes. Okay, fine. Good. I mean, espressivo worked much better. A tempo worked much better. Then technically some little things. I liked very much what you did here. You played completely non-legato, and that's exactly what you should do. Very good. You should do the same thing here, and that's not so easy. You see, it should be completely detached in the left hand. Can you do the a tempo straight? Hey, sorry. Wrist lower. Yeah, right. Yes. I hear your soprano completely clearly. That's completely fine. No trouble at all. Left hand is a little bit in the shadow. Okay, also here. Sorry. It should remain non-legato. Okay. The left hand has to be practiced. So that's life of a pianist. So that's fine. To practice that, I would do lots of things so that I would keep the pinky down. Well, maybe not there because I mean then I would detach that anyway. But in the beginning I would keep the pinky down and do it. So that the hands and the fingers get used to this non-legato touch by each of the fingers separately. That's pure practicing, so I would leave you to do that. Can you start from there? Okay, there's this phrasing difference. In the end, this same theme has a different phrasing. So that's not only, it's cut, and not only cut, but it's redistributed with many octaves. Not many octaves, so 10. Anyway, so but now it's in the same octave, and it's the end of the slur, which would mean an even which is exactly the opposite of that in the end. Yeah. Yes. Very nice. And I would play the softest of all, the octave, which then after which the crescendo begins. Yeah. That was very good. One more time. Yeah, and then the rhythm is kind of unsymmetrical. Ta-dan, da-dan, da-dan. Second time is different. Is very good. So it's the left hand which you have to practice. So it should be like completely non-legato. I would pretty much play the staccato, and so like this. Completely staccato. It's just more nervous and has this more malicious energy when it's really separate. So, but that's practicing. Another way to practice that is to do this pulling movement, which includes the quick movement of the fingertip. This kind of thing. So there's not so much work from the knuckles when you practice that part. It's more the work for the two last joints of the finger. I would do both. So that's more for the knuckles, and then hopefully there will be a synthesis of the two at some point, which then gives you an ideal staccato. Okay, right, and then let's see that we get to do what we have to do. Extremely non-legato. For the record, I wrote down a funny fingering which I used. I used 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, regardless of any keys, black or white or whatever. So because that's going to be a non-legato, I use 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 1. Because then there's no quick position change. When you could play that one, we could play that in octaves, but we don't. But we can play that 1, 1, 1, and then it's completely non-legato. Okay, that's that. And then we have pretty much the same things. So actually, musically, this is musically much less complicated than it is complicated in the structure of the piece because of its very special character. And that's, I think, the real thing to do here. I mean, the real task to do, to have the courage to bring out the character as negatively as possible. It's really, I think, a destructive movement. For instance, here, when you have these, I think somebody like Liszt would have written disperato, desperately, like in the F minor etude. And that etude. It's it's like really, I think, very extreme. And then, by the way, no pedal, no ritenuto, and not too beautiful sound. So very in-your-face kind of sound. Because then we get this extreme contrast after having 1 and 2 together when we come to the third. By the way, some people actually consider the vivace / adagio and prestissimo as one movement of two sides, which I think makes sense. And it actually only adds to this fractality which I talked about, so that this many in one is also going to then be heard in the finale, in the variations. So we can see that also that way. Okay. Andante, your tempo is, I think, very good. I very much like the ornaments, for instance. I also do it that way. That's I think, good. So now everything we do should be extremely legato, extremely singing, which means that, for instance, now after this, no accent for the F sharp. So the 8th note must always be without the accent. Sometimes, I think, when there's no slur between the notes, like in the second measure, you can have this saraband, heavy second beat. There we don't. There we have a slur, so that second beat is not going to be heavy. Right. Very good, very good. Again. Right, good. You don't notice that yourself. Have you heard the Kempf recording of this? You have Kempf recording.
I think so. Is it on the forte piano?
No. He was not yet in that bunch. I mean, he passed away before the hip generation. But he does this third bar extremely beautiful. He does a little diminuendo before the next crescendo starts. That's exquisite. So you can find that out. The crescendo starts from the downbeat of bar 4. And then more. Yeah. Very good, very fine. Yes, very fine. Bar 3 was excellent. Bar 4, you certainly did a good crescendo. You might have pushed the tempo forward a little. I would actually rather expand so that the relaxation is very well felt. Can you start with bar 3? No accent at the end, slur. Relax. You can change the pedal after the resolution note. When there's a slur and you want to play the last note, especially softly, let the pedal be down until you already have played the last note and then release that. That will camouflage the break. And make sure that you have the dee-dum, pa-dum, the E to the D sharp, also very clearly. Okay, continue. Careful now. And careful. Good. That's different. You see, we have a different slurring in bars 9 and 10. Because of that, I think we should slightly more emphasize the downbeat of bar 11 and make a diminuendo from and then have more. No. Okay, no break. Okay, once more. Just a slight. Okay, now you also wait for that a bit too much. Let the melody flow. No wait. You also are waiting for that downbeat, which is not a good idea because the slur goes over 2 bars. Yeah, right. Of course, what you now did was this pedal change between the slurs, and that's of course correct. It's almost like a hypercorrect thing, like if somebody speaks like this. So make the slur break in such a way that we actually don't hear it in this kind of music as a slur break. I would not say that in, let's say, Haydn or Mozart, where the slur breaks actually have to be heard, but this is different, of course. Hey, wait. Start counting twice from in this measure 12, 13, 14. I will start counting from 1, 2, so that the 2 is absolutely felt. And then diminuendo from the C sharp to the B. He writes that actually in 3 ways. He writes that with the slur, that's already a diminuendo. He writes the diminuendo symbol, and he writes a sforzando for the C sharp. So it's kind of, please. Yeah, but make sure that you don't make another sforzando for the upbeat. No, Crescendo must go on, but in a certain proportion. That's already a sforzando. It's a good. Okay, good. Now, since the second movement, from where we know that un poco espressivo meant a little slower, among other things, many other things, and then a tempo. So then, if the variation number 1 is molto espressivo, so not those long notes, but very broad. It's like what Richter said about the Prokofiev Sonata number 8, like a tree which is heavy with fruit. It's a very nice image for this variation. Heavy. You're right, and you can do all kinds of things to emphasize those with the slurs. I mean, emphasize in every way the sort of soft, heavy movement of this molto espressivo. Nice. Big time. Excellent. Slur. Sorry. I don't think so. Don't get shy. I mean, you had a very good sound. Don't lose that. I mean, it's a very good big sound which you have there. I just meant that locally we have still to do the slurs. So. Just that's all. these hairpin crescendo diminuendo also as agogical signs. They could, by the way, they say that Brahms always did that when he played any pieces, and so his own or other pieces, other people's pieces. Always when there was a hairpin crescendo diminuendo, he took time.
Okay.
Clara Schumann wrote that it almost felt that Brahms would not like to leave those notes. So I don't know. This is not Brahms, of course, but there's something in that picture, I think. Oh yeah. Yep. Slurs. Wait. Not that way. Oh, that's very good. I think that was really good. I think that's exactly the character, at least how I see, how I understand that. I mean, we can't call him and ask. But I mean, this is absolutely in keeping with what he writes and how he uses the espressivo in the previous movement. Now, if espressivo is a tempo indication, so why not leggermente? So, could be. Why not?
Schnabel plays it very slowly. I think Schnabel plays it very slowly.
Well, many people do. But you see, I mean, we cannot really say who is right. We have different ways to read this. Of course, one legitimate way is not to disregard these tempo connotations of those indications, leggermente or espressivo. But there is a fact that Beethoven used espressivo in a tempo indicative way in the previous movement. So that, I think, absolutely means something for the espressivo in this movement. And then if the espressivo has these, so why not other indications as well? It's kind of logical. We can't say if Beethoven followed exactly this kind of logic, but it's a possibility. So give it a try. To me that sounds very good. To me that sounds completely different. Exactly. And then if we see leggermente as a tempo indication, then why not teneramente as well? I think you could, if you like, you can play the leggermente a little bit faster still to get the possibility to play the teneramente a bit slower without getting too slow. Could you start from the start of the diminuendo maybe here? Repetitions as part of the phrase, then they are a little bit dangerous if we get slower, so they start to pull the music too much back. I would use the slur as a kind of a symbol for this taking time. Extremely soft, really, really soft. Yes. Crescendo already. Crescendo again. That sounds very good. That sounds very good. Okay, I'm afraid we have to stop very soon, but let's list the same things then at the end. Can we try the variation 3? I would say that technically you're doing okay, but your wrist can be freer. It's not only fingers, but it's also this finger-wrist combination which you need there. do it a little bit slower. Keep the wrist a little bit lower. And then in the whole variation you need an absolute synchronization of the two hands. They are not quite synchronized. That's easy to practice. You can practice this way. Fermata. Not in a special rhythm like that doesn't help so much, but the fermata. Where you kind of take your time preparing the next synchronization point. Okay, but this movement, this variation is mostly about the clarity of the texture, which means clarity of the technique, and also clarity of the dynamics. So first forte to sforzando, and then both hands do the same, inverted and double counterpoint, as you know. And then piano crescendo to forte, piano crescendo to forte. Make sure that you do every one of these little variants in the right way. You know, I think we are actually a little bit over time.
Sure.
So let's finish that here. But looking forward to hearing more of this.
Yes.
From you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Dear audience, I am Niklas Pokki, the director of the Youth Piano Academy Finland and also the artistic director and founder of the Mäntä Music Festival. I want to thank everyone who was listening the live stream. Also, I want to thank our young artists, Vilina, Mikael and Samuel, and first and foremost the Professor Matti Raekallio, who gave his time to give this truly insightful and inspiring masterclass today. This all would not be possible without our sponsors, Jane and Aatos Erkko Foundation, who is supporting this Youth Piano Academy project, and Serlachius Fine Arts Foundation. We are now in Kivijärvi Hall at the Serlachius Fine Arts Museum, and especially two gentlemen, Jaakko Karppinen and Olli Huttunen, who made this live stream possible. Also Sanna Tukia Lenguen, who helped our organizing this weekend. And who else? Ralph Erik and Bror Serlachius Foundation, who made it possible to accommodate in Huhkojärvi estate, which is a very important cultural historical place, a wonderful and inspiring place for the youth and us, the adults, too. And last but not least, I want to thank Mrs. Rebecca Angervo, who has organized this weekend as a producer of the Youth Piano Academy. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all in a couple of hours when the Youth Piano Academy gives the concerts in Gösta Museum in Mäntä. Thank you very much.